Hi, I'm Nikki from Find Me Crafting. We are headed into the cooler fall months, and one of my absolute favorite ways to decorate is with crocheted pumpkins. And because we just recently moved, I've got a whole new color scheme to match to, so of course I needed, new pumpkins. I have a new favorite way to make pumpkins. It's the Ruffle Pumpkin. Look at that. I mean, come on, how adorable is that? And of course, because it's yarn, the color options are infinite. This is a gray pumpkin with white ruffles. I also have a white pumpkin with navy blue and gray ruffles. Or you can make your background different colors. This one's navy blue and gray on the background with white ruffles. Really, the sky's the limit. And these are so easy to give away because who doesn't love crocheted pumpkins? I'm telling you, everybody's gonna love one of these. They are quick and easy to make. No matter what colors you end up deciding on, the pattern is available for free on my website. I'll put a link in the description box down below. You're gonna wanna make a whole bunch of these. Come on, I'll show you how. And if you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so that you don't miss any new patterns or projects. Here's what you're going to need for supplies. You obviously need some yarn. I'm using medium weight size 4 yarn. This is all Hobby Lobby's. I love this yarn. And of the pumpkins that I made, I used the colors white, dark denim, and gray beard. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make one that is gray beard as the background, and the ruffles will be white. I'm using a G 4mm hook. You're going to need some Poly-fil stuffing to stuff your pumpkin. You're also going to want some kind of stick for the stem. You can actually buy little sticks like this from the craft store. I'll have some linked in the description box down below. The ones that I'm using are actually just sticks I cut with a tool called a Lopper from a tree in my backyard. So if you have access to something like that, that can work fantastically. You're also going to need a yarn needle and a pair of scissors. To get started, I'm going to be making the background. So today I am using gray beard for the background of this pumpkin, and we need to chain. So first I'm going to create a slip knot and then tighten it up. I'm going to chain 27. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So for the first stitch, we are going to work into the third chain from the hook. Here's where my hook goes in this loop. Here's 1, 2, third chain right here, and we're going to work a double crochet into that third chain. So we yarn over, go into the chain, pull up a loop. There are 3 loops on, yarn over, go under 2, yarn over under 2 more. Now I'm going to do that again in each chain down to the end. That'll be a total of 25 double crochets. So here I go into the next one, yarn over under 2, yarn over under 2 more, and just continue that on until you reach the other end. I want to point out that nowhere in this pattern is this chain 2 going to count as a stitch. So you're going to have a chain 2 at the end of each row, does not count as a stitch. So here we are at the end of the row, and we're going to do that chain 2. So now we're going to be working into row 2. Our first stitch and the last stitch of this row are going to be under both loops. So we're going to do another double crochet right here in this first stitch. So yarn over, go under 2, yarn over under 2 more. Now in the next stitch, we want to work in the back loop only. So if you have 2 loops here on the top, let me get this out of the way. You have 2 loops on each stitch. This one and this one here in the front. This is the front loop, the one closest to you. This is the back loop. So we want to work a double crochet under this back loop. Let me show you what that looks like. We yarn over, and you kind of go just down through the middle of the stitch and under that back loop, pull up a loop, and now we just work it like any other double crochet. You yarn over, go under 2, yarn over under 2 more. Let me show you again. We're going to yarn over, go right here in the middle and under that back loop, pull up a loop, 3 loops on, yarn over under 2, yarn over under 2 more. And that leaves this front loop here free. We are going to work in the back loop only for all the rest of the stitches until you come to the final 25th stitch, and we are going to work that under both of the loops. So the first stitch of each row is under both loops. The last stitch of each row is under both loops. And the 23 stitches in between are just in the back loop. The back loop only is how that reads on a pattern. Here I am over at the end in my last 25th stitch, and I'm going to go under both loops for this double crochet. I'm going to chain 2, and I'm going to turn my work. And I've just showed you the pattern for this entire background piece for the pumpkin. You're going to do 1 row of regular double crochets under both loops, chain 2, and then you're going to do that second row where the first and the last stitches are under both loops, and the other 23 stitches are in back loops only. We just repeat that pattern. So all regular, back loop only, all regular, back loop only. You're going to repeat that for 28 rows. If you wanted your pumpkin to have a striped background, I changed colors every 2 rows. Once you've completed 28 rows, it should look like this. And mine is 13¼ inches long, but if yours is a little longer, a little shorter, it's really not going to matter. It's going to look great either way. I have woven in my starting tail, and now it's time to add the ruffles. It doesn't matter which end you start the ruffles at, they're going to look the same either way. I'm going to attach the yarn color that I want my ruffles to be. Mine are going to be white. I'm just going to make a slip knot. And you're going to be working the ruffles into that front loop that you didn't work in when you did the back loop only. That's what is creating these ridges. These are the front loops. And because your first stitch and your last stitch of the row were under both loops, there should not be a front loop right here at the edge, which is going to make it easier later when we put the pumpkin together. So you want to start that 1 stitch in, and you go under the front loop. I am going to tighten up my slip knot. I'm going to pull it through, and now I'm going to chain 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then in the next front loop, I'm going to do a slip stitch. So I go under, I yarn over and pull the loop through that front loop, and then through the loop on my hook. That's 1 little ruffle. Now you chain 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And we slip stitch in the next front loop, pull it through, chain 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and slip stitch in the next loop. And I'm going to continue that down this row of front loops until I get to the other end. And I'm going to stop that 1 stitch in right where my last front loop is, and I'm going to finish off. Once you finish the entire row, you should have 23 of these ruffles or loops. And of course, an open space here on one side and an open space on the other side. And you're going to repeat that process for all of your rows of front loops, including this one over here that I missed when I started. I'm going to do all of my ruffles in white. If you wanted to, you can alternate colors, put in as many as you wanted. I alternated on this one. I had a white background, and I alternated with the dark denim and the gray beard colors. Because you're finishing off each time, you are going to have a starting tail and an ending tail for each row of ruffles. I'm going to show you how to avoid having to tuck all of those in once we get to that point. Once you get all 14 rows of ruffles done, you're going to have this hot mess. So let me show you how to get rid of these ends without having to weave every one of them in, because that'll drive you insane. I'm going to take one of my ends, put it on my yarn needle. I thread it from the front side of my work to the back. I'm going to go under just a couple of stitches, 1 or 2, and knot this, just so I know it's not going to pull out. And I'm just going to leave that dangle there. That is going to become stuffing when I stuff the inside of my pumpkin. And I'm just going to do that for each one of my little ends. So it's not as bad as weaving them in, for sure. It's not going to show up on the front side of your work. And it'll be a lot less time. You are welcome. Once you've got all of the gross looking ends on the inside instead of the outside, looks more like this, and it's time to stitch it closed. So using the long tail end that you left over at the end of your background piece, we are going to stitch the two sides together. You're gonna wanna put that on your yarn needle and fold the right sides, the pretty outside of your work, towards each other. So you're gonna be looking at the inside while you do this. And you just want to weave back and forth from the side where your end is. We're going to go underneath the loops on the other side and pull it through. And then come back, going under the loops just to the left and both loops on the other side. Come back through. Then we're going to go over one to the left, go under both set of loops and the loops on the other side. And we're just going to repeat this process until you've sewn up the side of the pumpkin. Next, we're going to want to flip this right side out. And if you were to look at your seam, it's over here. You're not going to be able to tell at all that that's a seam in between all the ruffles. It looks awesome. Now it's time to close up one end of the pumpkin over here. So with the same yarn tail that we still have, still hanging on, we are going to weave in and out of this end of the pumpkin. Make sure all of your little yarn tails are tucked to the inside and out of the way. And I am just going to come from the outside to the inside to the outside, weaving around this end through the stitches that are not ruffles. As you pull on this, this is going to tighten up this end. So go all the way around back to where you started, going in and out and weaving your end. Once you get back to the start, you just pull on this end and it's going to tighten up that hole. And you want to tighten up as much as you can. Don't break your yarn though. And then to finish this, I'm just going to go underneath some stitches on the right, come up on the left, underneath some stitches over there. Be careful not to catch any of your little ruffles. And then go back the other way. I'm just going to go under some stitches on this side and across under some stitches on the other side. I just want to close up this hole. This is going to be the bottom of my pumpkin. You can see it's pretty much closed. So I'm going to go from one side to the other one more time and knot my yarn. And you can weave in this end real quick before you move on to any other steps. Now you're going to want to stuff your pumpkin. So once again, make sure all of your little yarn tails are on the inside and begin stuffing your pumpkin. You want it to look relatively round. Don't stuff it too much because you will see the stuffing as it stretches out your stitches. But get it moderately filled. You can always add some more right at the very end. Next up, you want to cut yourself a fairly long length of yarn that we are going to thread through one of these top loops and just knot in place. I'm going to leave myself a bit of a tail just to weave in later. And now we're just going to repeat the process of weaving in and out this top row here all the way around, just like we did for the bottom. So once you get it all the way around, you can tighten up the hole. You want to close the hole. Now is the time to stick in any more stuffing that you need and also your stem stick. So you're going to stick that in. I like to wedge it down into my stuffing and then tighten up the hole around the stick. So once you get it tightened up, you can weave across your opening a little bit so that it stays closed, and you're going to want to knot it just like we did on the bottom. Once you get it all closed up, you can just leave it like this. This looks pretty awesome like this. I want mine to squish down in the centers and at the bottom just a little bit. So I am going to thread this, still the same tail, through the top. You're going to want to squish the bottom so you can have it come out the bottom. Pull your needle through. And then move over a little bit and go in reverse. So you're going to go up to the bottom, squish it out near the top next to your stem, and you just pull that tight and you'll see it indent. Got to move your stem around a little bit. You'll see it kind of indent at the top and the bottom. I'm going to run that again on opposite sides to tighten up those sides as well. And then it's just a matter of tying a knot in your ends and weaving in both of them. I hope you love making these as much as I do, and that you find some fantastic color combinations. Happy crafting!